education, business, writing, and networking. We've done that, Colleen. So I'll just give you a quick overview of For Our Grandchildren. So there's a communications committee, which they'll be thrilled to hear that you were impressed with their webpage, Colleen, because they've really been working hard on it. And we've got a new volunteer who's really focusing a lot of energy on this as well. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out to 870 people. We have a social media presence, our Facebook group that Scott and I started up a private group last year with 420 members. Our Facebook page is public. Some of our posts have reached between 2,000 and 4,000 views, which is cool. We're building a presence on Instagram. We've gotten some training funded by For Our Grandchildren. And as I said, we're connecting with some young volunteers who are going to help us with that platform. Our political action committee is probably the fastest growing committee in For Our Grandchildren. So teaching people how to talk to politicians. They wrangled us into doing a presentation for the local township government on, why they need to think about climate change. For Our Grandchildren was really involved in getting the city of Peterborough to declare a climate emergency and to establish a stronger tree bylaw to protect and develop the tree canopy. They collaborate with other groups in town. So recently the Youth Climate Action Club, the Peterborough Alliance for Climate Action, and then we were involved in the 350.org a couple of weeks ago. And then our membership and governance committee has done really great work restructuring our groups so that there are subcommittees working on project as opposed to just one big group where everyone's trying to and being asked to do everything. And we have a membership coordinator who makes personal contact with each volunteer to find out where they would best fit in. So over a year ago, we had 46 members, and now we have 74 in the year. That's pretty good. Last year, 15 of the 46 were active, and now this year, the number is close to 30. So we've had some really nice growth that way. In terms of our events, we're starting to organize some in-person events. So this spring, the city of Peterborough and For Our Grandchildren is organizing a tree event to give away some trees, but also to do some education around climate change. And then in the fall, another in-person event will be around the impact of climate change on health. So I'm going to pass things over to Scott, and he's going to give you a bit of an outline of how 4RG Meets came to be and what that looks like.
So during the pandemic, Beth and I were wondering how to engage the members of 4RG. We'd already joined the group, but what did it mean to be a member? Like, so what? And so with the pandemic, there wasn't that much going on. And so we were inspired by some other groups that we're part of or know of that we're doing presentations online. And so we suggested to our committee that we do some online presentations as well with guest speakers and whatnot. And they were a little bit apprehensive at first. And then when we told them that, yeah, we would do all the work, they went, oh yeah, go ahead then. And so from that, we sat down and we're a committee of three. There's Beth and myself and a woman, Connie McCracken, who pretty much run the 4RG Meets. And so what we've been trying to do is mostly focus on positive solutions and actions that you can take. I mean, as you said earlier there, Colleen, that if you just throw out the doom and gloom, people just kind of like, and they're stuck and they don't know what to do. So they want to know kind of what to do. So it tends to be solution-based, what we're presenting. And so we look for presenters that have some proven skills, that are known in their field. And then we've also even used polls within the meets or in other areas on the social media to find out what it is that people want to hear about. And so that's guided us through some of what we do. And so our audience tends to be, like you mentioned, kind of preaching to the choir to some extent. So there are a lot of 4RG members on there, but there's other people that have joined up that, were kind of looking how to get involved, but didn't know all that much about it. And so there's some regulars that show up that they're not activists, or at least they don't think they are. And they show up to hear what we have to say and what others have to say. And it's pretty good. It's mostly middle-aged and older, I'd have to say. But we do get some young people out from time to time. So we started it in May of last year was our first one. And so Beth did the first one. She introduced 4RG and did a little bit of the climate science and whatnot. And then I followed up with one on reconnecting with nature and how that can guide you to a more invested approach to being an activist. One of our other members, Drew Monkman, is a well-known columnist and teacher and children's book author on nature and naturalist. And what did I say? Oh, okay.
He's a lot. He's a lot
of stuff. And so he did one talking about the effects on the Peterborough region. So we kept it kind of local in that regard. And then his daughter runs a business out of Montreal where she does forest therapy. And so we had her in for a session for a different kind of approach. And speaking of younger people, and Beth made reference to this earlier, this Malika Collette, she is an up-and-coming wonder. She's just finished high school last year, and she has already done 2 presentations for us, one on youth activism and kind of where they're going and some of the groups that she's been part of there. And she's going to join us now in our media and our communications, so that's going to be great.
And on the executive too.
Oh, right, on the board as well. And then she went to COP26 in Glasgow, so she came back and reported to us on that. And so that was a meeting we did. We've had Alice Lavin who used to be at physics at Trent, did home energy retrofits, and we've had people respond out of that saying, "Hey, at least 2 of the people that were at these things said they'd taken actions because of that particular." One. Now that was August. We did 2 in August because that was the election, and so we had a members or the representatives debate as a 4RG meets, and so that was quite exciting. We were camping at the time. We had our laptops out in our campsites listening to it. We weren't hosting that time. Electric vehicles. There's a fellow, Robert Lockhart, that he spends his whole life doing electric vehicles, so he had lots to share. Pat Learmonth came in talking about regenerative farming, and many of us knew nothing about that and its role in climate change, and it's huge. And so that was a big informative piece for all of us. More recently, we've had Cheryl Lyon talking about the importance of being local, living your lives local, buying local, shopping local, etc. And quite a treat last month was having Dorothy Taylor in, and from Curve Lake, and she talked about the sacredness of water and our relationship to not only to water but to the environment and our earthmates as well. And coming up next, we've got there it is. Coming up next, we've got Kathy Duck, and she's going to talk about trees and how important they are with sequestering carbon and that kind of stuff. So it's been quite a slate of speakers, and they've all been excellent, and we've got them lined up as far as October, I think. We've got speakers lined up that have volunteered to come in and help us out. And so, yeah, it's been great. And so the nuts and bolts of how we do it, I mean, much of that we learned from you guys. But essentially, once we've contacted or figured out, used our networks to figure out who a good presenter might be, we talk to them, get their bio, kind of an outline of what they want to talk about, the format they're going to use, whether it's going to be a slide presentations or videos or just talking heads or in a debate in the one case. You can set up poll questions using Zoom and whatnot as well. And so then we exchange phone numbers in case there's any issues. We do a tech prep about a week in advance, where we make sure that the screen sharing is going to work, that any recordings they have are going to work, that they're familiar with the screen sharing and how that all works. Because they, like us doing it right now, we get them to do the presentation from their computer, and so it's important that they know how that all works. Now I've set it up so that people actually have to register for the meetings. Originally, we didn't have that, and we didn't have a clue until the night of how many people we were going to get. And so by getting the automatic registration out of the Zoom, you can set it up that way if you have a Zoom account. And then it keeps track and it sends it back to our Gmail to say, these many people have registered today and these many people have registered. And the second part of that is now you've got a list of all the emails of anybody that's ever attended one of your meetings. And so that allows us to send out mass emails to say, okay, our next meeting coming up is such and such. Don't forget to register. And so that's been helping. We're still learning stuff about that. Our promotion for these, we usually create a poster of some kind. Now we've been using Canva in the last few months, and it's a platform that allows you to use all their pictures, use all their backgrounds, and so you don't have to worry about copyrights or any of that kind of stuff. And we can send that out to our newsletter, our social media. Our networks within the networks can send it out to who they know. Even the networks of the presenters. I mean, when we had the one on regenerative farming, we had farmers groups from all over the place coming in, and that was either through the hashtags or through our speakers network herself that kind of attracted these people. So yeah, that's all very, very useful stuff. We'll usually just modify it using the Canva. There's the original poster for this particular one. And then the next one is like, just took the same poster and modified what's on it to give a thank you shout out. And then we also record everything as you're doing, and we put they're accessible through our website. And so people can go back and look at them later if they wish. And so we have a committee, but Beth and Dave in particular, Dave Sumner, that are really good about posting on our Facebook group with Instagram, but connecting current issues that are related to our upcoming event, and that gives us a second chance or third chance to advertise that particular meet. So just before the meet starts, we make sure we've reviewed, like you did, reviewing the bios, the intros, the land acknowledgements, any announcements coming up, summary comments that we might make at the end of it. And we usually meet with them again half an hour before the 7 o'clock start, just double check on the tech and make sure it's all going to work right. And then meet back up again at 7 and have a second computer ready to go in case something goes for crap. And then usually it's Beth or I that co-host, but occasionally we have them be available. So we've got our backup hosts that can take over. And then as a follow-up, we make changes to our procedures, which we've got quite a list of procedures that we follow now. And we send a note out or a card. Beth makes a card and sends it out to our presenters. Our list now of all the things that we follow is extensive, but most of it actually stems from what you guys put out in the first place, and we just took and modified that to suit our needs. And if you want a copy of that, we can send it to you later, but it's more or less yours to start with.
Well, yeah, to start with, it's crazy how every month there's something else we need to change, something else that we just figured out, oh darn, we should have done this, done that. So then we always want to figure out, well, what is the impact? Is it worth all this time and energy? So we are talking about climate change. As we said before, we ask people what topics they're interested in. And so as Scott said, our audience are people, they're not the people who need to be convinced. They're people who know it's an issue, but they don't know what to do. And they want to learn, like, should they buy an electric vehicle? Like, how do they make a difference in their life? And so it's nice to see people coming back month after month. And then, as Scott mentioned, I think people tell us that they're following up on some of the ideas. The far right column is a list of the numbers of people. So we keep track of the topics and who presented, who hosted it. And so the first the first month or two, it was a lot of, our members and friends and family.
Families, they felt sorry for us.
When they've fallen off, and from there on in, well, yeah, mostly. Although my brother did join as a volunteer, and he now helps with the newsletter, which was very cool. So we've had numbers 31, 25, 41, over 50, over 60, 75, 57. So we figure that that's good. Speakers will say to us how grateful they are that they can teach people about their topic of interest. And then the gratitude we get in the chat, it's really quite profound. We've seen a growth in the number of members and active volunteers for our grandchildren due to, a few different things, but I think definitely 4RG Meets is making a difference. People engage through good questions, and they share their own answers. They share their own ideas. They ask practical questions. And so we say at the beginning of the meeting, we'll end at 8 o'clock. And then at 8 o'clock, we always have the presentation, which is usually about 20, 25 minutes, is finished. And we've chatted for a while, and we let people know that, it's 8 o'clock, you can leave if you want. But many people will stay and continue the conversation until like 8:15 or 8:30. So just to wrap things up, joining forces with this established group in Peterborough has definitely been more effective than going it alone and starting a social media campaign with a dubious title. Or maybe an offensive title, I'm not sure. So, we have a ready-made audience that we're already connected to for our grandchildren. We can call on the expertise and connections for our grandchildren to help us out, to do presentations, to find presenters. They're thrilled with what has happened as a result of this. We don't have to do all the work ourselves, so we have help, networking, connecting with speakers, doing promotions, lots of encouragement from everyone. So it's turned out to be, it was very organic the way it developed and grew, and it's just turned out to be a really good thing. We're both really happy doing it. We feel like it, most days we feel like it's worth the time.
and that networking, I mean, having a bigger group of the people to work with, and one person's got a certain expertise and somebody else likes doing something else, and so as I say, with those posters, I create a poster, I send it out to them, and they're just shooting it off, all kinds of different directions that I don't even know about. I don't even know what they do with it. But yeah, we end up with people coming back to us that I went like, where did you come from? Yeah. So it's kind of good to be part of a bigger group to help each other.
And the last thing I'll say on that group note is we met a young couple through another, I don't know if anyone knows the Pachamama. It's online training. And so this young woman from Texas decided to start a social media platform and write blogs and have posts on Instagram. And it was her and her partner. And after about 4 months, they couldn't maintain it. So back to what your group, said to us right at the beginning, Colleen, like join a group.
Yeah. They were trying to do it all themselves. It's too much. It's too multifaceted.
Wow. So we did some thinking along with our webcast about what people are worried about, what they're concerned about. And like Beth and Scott said, a lot of people are concerned about a lot of things in Ontario, but they don't know what to do, or they don't know how to move forward with those concerns. So what is it that are top concerns in Ontario that we can help find interconnections with when we talk about the climate? So that's what where this resource came from. This is the Provincial KTCC Backgrounder that we developed. And it's to help people, whether they want to do a structured conversation like a KTCC, or whether they want to tailor another type of conversation for the group they're thinking about talking to, or whether they just want to talk to their neighbors. This is a way to sort of look at something they're interested in and that people in Ontario are interested in right now and make interconnections. So how it works is each of the buttons, which I'll show you later on, kind of follow the story arc, I'm calling it. And start with the challenges and impacts we have here in Ontario, potential actions and solutions, an example of working together, and things we can do next. So you've seen this in various forms already tonight. On a provincial level, though, we find that a lot of people, I'm going to skip down to the second set of buttons, are really interested in and concerned about things that I've called biodiversity and the environment. So things that are happening in the green belt and, you know, the highways that are going through and the MZOs that are being pushed through. And they really do interconnect with what we need to do to protect the climate as well. And also, some of the number one concerns are health and COVID and housing, and so affordable housing. So this backgrounder also kind of helps us find out how to interconnect, and climate justice is all of these things, right? So we can connect on people in any way with any entry point, and sort of help people find common ground in the conversations. So the backgrounders here, for if you know your group might be interested in a certain piece, or if you are interested and you just want some support and resources to sort of develop some conversation or some confidence around those and find out how to bring people together on the different things. So let's start. I just want to show you one example of the button. I'm going to click on it and just show you. So I started here with the challenges and setbacks we've had in Ontario over the past few years. We had the cancellation of the cap and trade, you know, and which meant that a lot of the things that were going to be funded around climate action, like school upgrades and rebates for home retrofits and clean energy programs, were all just gone, right? So it really was a blow to the climate plans here. So there's a bunch about that, about the things we lost in that button, and then flipping it around and saying, what do we need instead? So this is kind of like actions and solutions for us. Like, what do we need to ask for instead? We need a replacement of funding, of meaningful funding. And I know it's hard to read all of this. I'm just going to show you, because you have access to this. You can look at any of the buttons in more depth. But what do we need instead is almost a reversal of what we lost, right? We need funding sources again. We need cooperation on all different levels, and they, of course, took the federal level to court. You know, so instead we need a cooperation. So we've got all of that. We also in the buttons have an emergency section. So what would we do if we were really considering the climate and emergency in Ontario? What do we need to do? So I pushed this section a little bit to say, let's really think outside of the box. I notice a lot of people are ready to do this when I have climate conversations. They want to say, what about capitalism? You know, like that used to be a frightening word, and it's coming up more and more often. Like, what do we think if we're going to think about changing how we view the market and growth-based approaches and how we need to live in a more circular way? People are wanting to talk about that, and that is really important. So we've got that, and it actually connects with climate justice. So there's some climate justice things here. So I just want to point out that climate justice and our climate, when we talk about the climate, it can very easily connect with health, right? There's justice around health, and acting on the climate is very much connected with that. Also, cost. It can be connected with cost because the cost of inaction would be really high. The cost of insurance, the cost of, you know, damages due to storm. So you can connect to that. I have an example of a win here. What else can we do? I mentioned that there is an Ontario environmental comment portal that people don't always know about, where they can share their views on different things that are planned on the environment level. I just wanted to tell you that this is here, and under each button, it kind of explains how you can connect to other buttons. So on Stop the Sprawl, we're all hearing about the highways and the fact that they're going to probably disrupt wetlands, they're going to disrupt agricultural land, they're going to increase the need to drive. They're, you know, we're not looking at making complete communities that are compact when we're thinking about highways and development. So what we need instead, and this is an environmental defense movement that's going on right now, but what we need instead is, you know, considering other means of building. And so the resources have like other ways for you to find out more about what's happening as well. And I just want to just praise people in the Hamilton and Halton, the Stop Sprawl Halton, the Stop Sprawl Hamilton people have really done a lot to guarantee their action has led to their councils voting against urban boundary expansion. And that is a direct result of working together, you know, as a committed community group. So there's some of that in here too, and other ways to learn about all these different things that you might find your group that you want to talk to could be interested in. So that's just there. And I just wanted to show you it because we are talking about the province and connecting with people around election concerns.